Existential overhead is everything in the world that's going on that impacts your brain and distracts you, takes you away from where you want to be. At work, existential overhead is particularly debilitating, not just because it's a thing, but because we ignore it like nobody's business. We are incredibly skilled at denying that human beings are human the moment that they go to work. And, that's just obviously not correct. So when Tony and I were writing the personal Kanban book, we put existential overhead in the book and actually right at the beginning of the book because the things that upset us are they happen to our brains. It's just that simple. We have this thing where we've got these existential overheads, and they're not things that are our tasks and our to-do lists. They're things like healthcare problems and financial problems and grief and loss and politics and just all of these things that just are constantly eating away at our ability to do work. Years ago, we worked with a woman and she lost her father. And when she lost her father, we said, okay, you know what? You were originally trying to do all of this stuff. We're going to lower your work in progress to one thing a day. Because we didn't want her to just like sit around and not feel useful. But at the same time, we didn't want to overload her. So she was just required to do one thing a day. And then after she did it, we'd talk about it. And then she would go off to process her grief. And that's huge. It's a really important thing. And in general, we're all idiots about these things. And so we're like, oh, you know what? If you just like build a Kanban, things will be fine. Or if you do Scrum, everything will be fine. Or if you go get therapy, everything will be fine. Or if you just meditate. It's like, no. It's like this stuff is hard. And it's relentless and it doesn't go away. And it shows up in your brain when you least want it to or when you least expect it. So, there's things that we can do. There's a lot of data about it. But we want to make sure that we understand that if you're an individual and you're dealing with existential overhead, you're going to have to, if you don't lower your whip, if you don't adjust the amount of work you're expecting yourself to do, you're going to have to work longer hours to compensate for the fact that you're not thinking as clearly about this stuff as you want. And that's not sustainable, like the thing says, but worse than that is it's not even practical because a lot of that time you're going to be thinking about other things, you're going to be making mistakes, you're going to be leaving things out, lots of errors of omission. And that just means that you're going to lose the ability to turn in complete and beautiful work. And that hurts the people around you. So not only can you not lose the ability to help others, but you're losing the ability to actually do your work. And that's you as an individual. So like if the team, so you got your team here and it's got like a bunch of people. All right, line up like that. It's got a bunch of people on the team and they're dealing with different stuff. Then, all of a sudden you're going to have people, quit. You're going to have people go on vacation. You're going to have people do quiet quitting. And there's all this thing about quiet quitting is like quiet quitting this, quiet quitting that. Well, basically quiet quitting is people saying right now I can't deal with what I need to do. And that might be because the work is given to them in a terrible way. It might be because the other people that they're working with are jerks. And it might be because of existential overhead. And it's probably because of a combination of all of those things together. But the biggest one for me here is that in real time, we're losing institutional knowledge. So if I'm the person, we all have skills when we come to work. And if I come to work and I have these skills and people are counting on me for those skills and I am diminished and people don't recognize it and they're peppering me with all of these questions and I can't get stuff done and then I get frustrated, I am going to perform less, which means that my institutional knowledge, even though I'm there, is lost. And then I become cynical, other people become cynical, psychological safety, blah, 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 blah. So the last bit here for the org as a whole, you know, life. No, that didn't work either. Um, so we've got the organization here, but let's think about this as leaders and leadership, right? So as a leader, you are trying to build a group of people who are able to get stuff done. If you lose experienced talent, you're not going to be able to get stuff done. If you're going to spend a lot of time hiring and interviewing and searching and training people, you're not going to get stuff done. If you have a culture that people hide their problems, then they're not going to do their work effectively, and you're not going to get stuff done. If you have people who are constantly thinking that people can just shut up and buck up and get their work done, you're not going to get things done, blah, 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 blah. If you want people to do their work, you have to build a system in which people can do their work. And then you and those people have to maintain that system. It's just that simple. So down here, I got this blueprint, right? Or up here, I got this blueprint. And I hate using the word blueprint because I hate it. I hate even beginning to give the assumption that a simple bullet list is ever going to fix anything. Okay? Bullets fix nothing, regardless if they're physical or if they're little dots on a page. But right here, what these lists do is they just basically say, look, we all need to watch other people and how they're reacting to the situations around them so that we are able to get things done, so that we're able to define work well. We're able to know that work is flowing well. We're able to communicate with the customers and the client well. And when we're doing all of those things well, weirdly enough, because most of the people who are working with us, who are our customers, we're giving them something that they need. And when they have it, it removes a problem. If they don't have it or it doesn't work well, then we've just given them another problem. So even if you have a completely boring product, like even if you're making, Big Macs or quarter pounders or whatever, no matter what you're providing, if somebody is coming to you and they want that thing, and then you give them that thing and then they just use it, then you've avoided a problem. So here what we want to do is we want to make sure that it's a standard practice just to talk about capacity. And that doesn't mean like every day, like, what is your capacity? But it means like that there are a number of ways that capacity is shown. So some of them can be people coming in and saying, you know what, I just had a death in the family. I'm going to need to deal with this a bit. I can be here on Slack to help you guys out, but I'm not going to pull any tickets for the next couple of days. And I'm just going to kind of deal. So that's a big thing. But what if it's just like, you can't deal with the fact that your kid was in a high school band, and now because a levy didn't get passed, there's no more high school band, and your kid is completely freaking out because everything about that was, it seems trivial to everybody else, but you have a kid and that kid is hurting. These things impact work, right? So understanding that we have that capacity. The other thing is that when we have a Kanban or whatever, and your work is flowing through there and you're measuring things like your cycle time, your lead time, and your throughput, that when those things have variation, we can ask why. And when we ask why, it's not because we want to make our number every time. It's because we want to make sure that that dip is a healthy dip. Numbers go up, numbers go down, numbers go up for good reasons and bad reasons. Numbers go down for good reasons and bad reasons. But what would be bad is if the number went down because somebody needed some slack, and then you push that number right back up because you wanted to make your numbers. That would be a bad reason. So also, okay, so I'm pontificating now. So we want to be able to have ways to signal this reduced capacity. And then when we actually have plans, we want to make sure that we're planning for the people that we're actually working with and not for our hopes and dreams. This doesn't mean you can't have stretch goals, and it doesn't mean you can't figure out ways to do your work better, because that's what continuous improvement's all about. But what it does mean definitely is that you don't beat the crap out of people in order to temporarily gain some more efficiency, knowing that later they're going to burn out and you're not going to have access to them. So don't add to their existential overhead because you want to make your KPIs. So that's it for this one. Just like the last one, we're going to have a webinar and a workshop around these, because right now what we're seeing is that dealing with this kind of stress, dealing with this kind of real world problem is incredibly important for teams right now. Everybody is hurting in one way or another, and we want to help fix that. So thank you all. Like and subscribe, do all of those things, but take care of yourselves, okay?